Hello my lovelies, welcome to your practice today. So we're going to do a yin style practice for kind of the energy of the liver meridian. So I have a bunch of props here. For this sequence of movements, you don't necessarily need anything. It really is for comfort. So if you want to get really cozy, grab some pillows and cushions. If you know you're a little bit tight, then please grab a couple of pillows, some books or blocks if you've got yoga blocks. And a blanket is always a handy prop to have. Okay, I'm going to leave it up to you. So go grab what you need. More props if you want a more cozy practice. Okay, and I will see you back on the mat when you're ready. Okay. So, sit up nice and tall, find your sit bones. If you're finding that you're falling back into your glutes, this is where you're going to want to sit on your blanket. Okay. And we're going to just bring the shoulders over the hips. So just finding that tallness in yourself and then just drawing the chin back very slightly. And rest your hands on your knees. Just start to notice your breath, inhaling through the nose, exhaling through the nose. Beautiful. You don't have to do anything particular with the breath. We're just noticing our inhale and our exhale. So there's this thought with that kind of energetic anatomy that we find in traditional Chinese medicine and in yoga anatomy. The organs have humors, moods. So when the liver is harmonious, we are able to manage stress with greater ease. We aren't holding tension in our body. When there's vitality in the liver, folks with that vitality in that organ are really calm. They very rarely get ruffled. Okay? They're discerning decision makers and natural leaders. Okay, so if that sounds like you, this is just maintenance. Okay, that doesn't sound quite like you if you're holding a lot of stress, right? Tension in your body, and you're finding it hard to make some decisions. Well, this is a tune-up. All right. Either way, it's great for the body. So we've percolated the legs a little bit. The liver meridian comes from the base of the ribs, through the body, across the hips, down through the inside of the leg, across the top of the foot, and ends at the big toe. Okay. So with that in mind, we've kind of percolated, opening a little bit. I'm going to bring the soles of the feet together. So again, for this one, please feel very welcome to sit on your blanket. Right? So as we sit on the blanket, suddenly this whole area gets a little bit more spacious. Right? So the liver meridian runs through here. It's actually going to give us more room to come forward and create a deeper compression. Okay? Rather than rolling back and trying to come forward, we won't get quite as much compression through here, and we want the compression. So yoga isn't all about stretching, it's also we want that squeezing happening as well. So you can sit on your blanket if you want to, and you've got your blocks or your cushions. You need a little bit of support here, then please feel welcome to support your knees. So as we hang out here, okay, I'm going to invite you to take your fingers so the thumb can come under to the sole of the foot. The fingers can go between the toe next to the big toe and the big toe, all the way up to the middle of the foot. And actually, if you wiggle your foot, you can feel kind of at that center point, you can feel like a little bit of there's a tendon in there, right? You can just feel there's a wiggling right up in here. So you can take your fingers, let your elbows rest on your legs, okay? And we'll let our head dangle. So the body is very sensitive, and what we're using our fingers for is acupressure. Okay, so with acupressure, we're just using a little bit of pressure from our fingers to our skin. Okay, so this is not acupuncture where needles are pressed into the skin. Okay, so we're not trying to press our fingers through our foot. So let your hands be soft. Okay, so we don't have to have a white knuckled gripping happening as if we're trying to drill our fingers through our foot. What we're doing is just creating some light pressure. And if you're able to rest your forearms on the inside of your calves, okay, you're actually kind of just creating some squeeze along the liver meridian line. And there's some pressure points through the inside of the leg. So letting your body dangle here, breathing in, breathing out. Don't necessarily have to do anything in particular with our breath here. So allowing the body to soften, to sink down into the shape. So no forcing has to happen here. There's no hurry to get to the deepest version. If you're feeling quite far away, your head feels quite far away from your feet, it might be simply by moving the feet away from the body a fraction. It's going to give you a little bit more room to come into the pose a little deeper. So play around with that. So as you relax into the shape, perhaps there's an opportunity to deepen the breath, breathing into the back of the body. Feeling a little bit of stretch across the back as the rib cage opens on the inhale. As you exhale, maybe letting the head get a little heavier. So just settling in, just noticing what's present for you right now. What flavor is the mood that you have right now? There's no right or wrong. We're just observing as we get to sit in a sense of apparent stillness with ourselves, without distraction. We get to notice in this moment. Take a nice deep breath in, release your hands from your feet, and bring your hands to the floor, kind of between your heels and your hips. And very slowly on an exhale, use that exhale to wave up from the base of the spine, through the length of the spine to the shoulders, the neck, the top of the head. And bring your fingertips, we'll draw the knees together. Maybe leaning back on the mat, just windscreen wiping the knees from side to side. Okay, good. Again, just taking a breath here, a pause. Okay. So my lovelies, we're going to head into dragon pose. So you'll want your blocks or your books at the top of the mat. These are really just for you to rest your hands on if you need a little bit more space between your body and your legs. We're going to come up onto hands and knees. So with hands and knees, what I'm going to offer you is to take the blanket under your left knee, your left shin. Okay. And then we'll take the right foot. We're actually going to stretch the right foot as far back as you can, press through the heel. And we're going to do a nice roundhouse kick. So just finding that range of motion in the hip. And bringing the foot up to the wrist. So right now, my right knee is right over my right heel, and I've let my left knee slide back a little bit. So this might feel a little bit uncomfortable, right? So this is why we have the blocks. So you can bring the ground up to meet your hands. You can rest your hands on the block. If you've got something going on in your hands, sometimes it's nice to let your fingers wrap around the top of your blocks or your books, okay? Sometimes their bellies can feel like they're holding us out of the pose a little bit, or if we have a bigger chest, that can sometimes feel like it's holding us out of the pose. So for ease of being in the pose, you can shift your hand to the inside of the leg, okay? And I quite like doing that anyway, because as I start to settle, it feels nice to actually take my foot out to the side, so I've got a little bit more space to get my body down through my hip. And then sometimes it actually feels nice just to take that foot slightly forward. Okay, so this might be where you are in your pose. Okay, if you feel like as you've started to percolate here, you can come in a little deeper, you can think about putting your forearms and rest your forearms. Okay. So with Yin Yoga, we want to play at our edges. Okay. We want to feel some intensity in our stretch. But we also want to be able to maintain the amount of intensity that we're feeling for a period of time, and to be able to manage that in as much stillness as we can, right? So if you've kind of come into a fairly intense shape, but you're kind of needing to sort of keep fidgeting in and out of it, ease out a fraction, right? It's better to do a little bit less so that you can be here, and then gradually as you soften, you can explore something that's a little deeper. So you decide where you're at. And then for some of you, if you're really feeling very flexible today, you might not even need to have the blocks. You might be able to bring your elbows down to the ground, or the forearms down onto the ground. So I'll let you play around with where you are in your pose today. Let your head hang heavy. So we want to maintain that easy breath. Finding that nice deep inhale. Maybe that breath that you took at the beginning of practice. Maybe you've been able to notice it's just started to deepen a little bit. It's nice and slow. Again, just noticing what's present for you right now. Noticing if there's a like or dislike dialogue happening. Noticing the sensations in your body. Noticing where you're feeling a lot of intensity, and bring your attention to where you're maybe not feeling any intensity in this pose. So if you feel that you can come into the pose a little deeper, I'm going to invite you a little bit deeper. So again, it doesn't have to be a lot. Maybe it's just 1 millimeter. Maybe you've come into this pose 1 millimeter deeper. All right, my lovelies, take a nice deep breath in. And exhale, let the breath go. And we're going to place our hands back on the floor. Okay. If you moved your toes or your foot in, like away from your body a little bit, let's walk it back so we've come back to that very basic shape. I'm going to curl the toes under, lift up the hips, and we're going to step back. Come into a down-facing dog. We'll just take a couple of breaths here. If down-facing dog doesn't feel like a pose that's a happy place for you, then just hands and knees pose is fine. So if you're in down-facing dog, just walk out the knees. If you're in hands and knees pose, just swish the hips from side to side a couple of times. So we're going to take a blanket over to the right side. If you're in down-facing dog, come into hands and knees. Okay. So we're going to put our right shin on the blanket. You have your blocks handy. And as you're ready, we're going to slide back with the left foot. Okay, press through the heel, and then a nice big roundhouse kick, just bringing the left foot all the way up to the left hand. And then coming into that lunge shape, we have the left knee over the heel. So I know I can slide my right knee back a fraction, coming into the shape. So again, just checking in with your body. How does it feel this side? Okay. So going through that checklist. So the knee is over the heel. Maybe you need to lift the ground up to make some space. Okay. Maybe it feels better to have your left hand to the inside of the left leg. Okay. As you start to settle here, it might feel nice to take the left foot out to the side a fraction. Okay. And maybe it feels good to wiggle the toes forward. And it might just be like a millimeter or two. Okay. We're hanging out here, so we're in that lunge shape. If you feel you can come down onto your forearms, you're welcome to do that. If you feel you can come deeper, please come deeper. So you can come all the way down onto the mat on your forearms. But again, we want that intensity. We want to be able to hold that intensity for time in stillness. So you don't need to kind of go and sprint the first mile of the marathon, right? We can just very slowly ease into the shape. So there's an apparent stillness that we have in a yin practice. But that softening, that deepening, that kind of surging into a deeper version of the shape can happen. Okay? And feel all the internal rhythms and movements in our body as we are externally still. So with our liver meridian, well, sometimes it's just modern day stresses that can aggravate the liver. There's pollutants, the air pollution, pollutants in air, water, refined food. Spending excessive amounts of time at a computer can upset the functioning, the vitality of the liver. So overeating, right? Overeating when we're angry. So sometimes when we reach for comfort food because we're angry, we're irritated by something, we're upset by something, really any kind of suppressed emotions that are creating eating is something that can really upset the liver. So again, as you hang out in this shape, really just allowing yourself to soften. Just noticing if you can maybe deepen your stretch a fraction. You're welcome to do that. Inhaling and exhaling through the nose. Last few breaths. Take a nice deep breath in. And exhale, bringing your hands back to the mat, and we'll bring a foot back. So we've got that original basic lunge shape. And then again from here, I'm going to offer you the option of down facing dog or hands and knees pose. So if you're coming into down facing dog, come in on an exhale. So we've got a nice lot of room. And pick up the back knee, exhale with some space to step back. You can walk out the legs. Okay. If you're coming into your hands and knees pose, hands and knees, just the belly a little bit in, just so that we're not hanging out with a sway back. We'll just swing the hips from side to side a couple of times. All right, my lovelies. So we're going to make our way into a cobra pose. So come down onto your heels. So if this is not a good position for you, just be in a standing kneel for a moment. So one of the pressure points we have is at the bottom of the ribs. So we're going to play around with Sphinx pose. So for Sphinx pose, if you need a little bit of support for your low back, you can use a blanket. If you're using a blanket, make sure your belly button sits in the center so that we don't have the blanket up here or down here. We want it at the center. So we're going to make our way onto our belly you might want to have blocks or books or a cushion for your head to rest on. We're going to bring ourselves onto our forearms. And then with our forearms on the floor, let's curl the toes under. You can step back with one foot, keep pressing through the pubic bone, and then with the other, it's going to give you a little bit more space. Okay, so as you press down through the pubic bone, the hip creases, so where your leg and your body joins, okay, and then from here, we're going to inhale, and we're going to just kind of pull our belly button forward slightly. So again, we're not kind of externally moving, there's kind of an internal movement. And then just feel your ribs, the bottom of your ribs resting on the floor. Okay, so if this isn't a happy place for your low back, then please feel welcome to take your head and rest it at the back of on the back of your hands. Okay, so you have that option. Otherwise, hang out in your Sphinx pose. If you would like a little support for your head, and rest your head on a block. Okay. If you don't want to rest your head on the block, draw your chin back. So create a little bit of a double chin here, right? Rather than crunching the back of the head into the spine, okay? Just draw the chin in, lifting out through the crown of the head, and that'll give you a really nice squeeze through the traps. So when our liver is out of balance, so that energetic anatomy of more Eastern style medicine, and show up as depression, anger, irritability, moodiness. So some of the other things that can happen is you notice you're sighing a lot. There's this constant kind of sighing that's happening. Kind of your body's trying to help itself when we do that. So we don't want to suppress sighing. It's the body's way of trying to release. Like a little bit of a pressure cooker has that little bit of a release valve. So one of the things that can happen when the liver's out of balance is we get kind of a little bit of a blurry vision. So the liver system actually incorporates our eyes. That's why when we are jaundiced, there's a yellowness to our eyes. So when the liver is kind of feeling sluggish, our vision can be affected. It's not quite as crisp as it usually is. There's a melancholy that we have. And just a sense of just like kind of chronic fatigue, right? Well, these are just some of the symptoms, okay? So just because maybe you're noticing that, you know, things are going on doesn't mean, oh, my liver needs to be balanced, but it's just there's little cues and clues that our body gives us. We'll be here just for a couple more breaths. If it feels good, and curl your toes under, push your knees back, maybe just bring your heels just to open up the front of the body a little bit more. So we'll feel this. So again, although the liver meridian comes through the inside leg, it goes across the front of the hip, across the abdomen, and then up into the bottom of the ribs. And it branches out to a secondary line, which actually will go all the way up to the eyebrows and to the crown of the head. Just a couple more breaths. So if you've got your toes pointing to the ceiling, and bring your feet down. And bring a body down. So rest your forehead onto the back of your hands. And we'll just take a few breaths here. Feeling yourself sinking down into the mat. Again, just feeling a heaviness at the bottom of your ribs. A little bit of gentle pressure from the weight of your body as your body rests upon the ground. And when you're ready, curl the toes under, and we'll bring our palms under our shoulders. We'll gently push up and back. And we'll take just a couple of breaths in child pose. And for child pose, I want to round the back out. So let's have child pose with the knees together, if that's available to you. And your forehead on the ground and your arms down by your sides. So your fingers and your toes are kind of together. So rather than an extended child pose, if there's not a happy place for your head, for your upper body, cross your forearms, so hand to elbows, and then just let your head dangle. So this might be another option. We'll just take a couple more breaths here. All right, my lovelies. Palms under the shoulders, curling up through the spine. Okay. So, my lovelies, we're going to come into a dragonfly pose or straddle. So this is one where you might want some of your other props. So we're going to take wide legs. So we want to have our props handy before you get too comfortable in your shape. Okay. So some of you might find sitting on your blanket is really helpful here, right? So you just let your hips jump up and you can sit on your blanket. We're going to come into a couple of side bends and then a forward fold. Okay. So if you're really tight through here, we want to feel a pull through the inside of the leg. We want to feel a lovely deep pulling happening through the inside of the leg. But if your hamstrings are really tight, okay, then you can just let your knees rest on your blocks if you have blocks. And also, if you decided to bring a bunch of like just little cushions, you can put the cushions under your knees because they're more comfortable than blocks are. Okay, so you have that option. And then finally, the reason it's nice sometimes to have a big pillow is because you get to hug it. Okay? So that way you can find that little bit of side stretch. So just getting into the gallbladder meridian a little bit. Okay? The gallbladder and the liver work together. Okay? So find your version of forward fold. If you don't feel that you need anything, okay, you can just come forward. So we'll start with the right side. We're sitting up nice and tall. We'll turn to the right foot and then we'll just gently come down and let the body soften here. Let the head rest. Again, if you've got pillows or props and your head feels like it's kind of dangling, you can rest your head for a few breaths on a pillow, right? Just while you start to settle in to your shape. And let's see if we can keep pressing down through both of the sit bones. Okay, so we're not just bringing all our weight and kind of floating on the left side. So going to have the weight evenly through the left and through the right side. So notice if you're gripping with your hands. Notice if you're gripping, if there's a lot of tension in your arms. Get your arms to soften. Create some space between your teeth. And just see if you can sink into your shape a little bit more. And very slowly, palms on under the shoulders. Come up on an exhale. Walk your hands back to center. And just take a breath here. So Lila is kind of here on her right side, so we're just giving a nice squeeze. Now we're going to kind of create space and stretch. So again, take your big cushion if you would like to be using it. Okay. And as you're ready, we're going to turn to the left toes and make our way into a shape on this side. So as we make our way into the shape, just notice the side might be a little bit tighter, it might be a little bit more open. So it might not feel quite the same. You might need to set up your props a little differently. Okay? And remembering that at the beginning, you can go into the shape a little slower. You don't have to go into the shape you just came out of, because you were in that shape for a little bit of time. We want both sit bones pressing onto the mat. Okay, so as you start to settle into your shape, maybe you can go a little deeper. You're feeling a nice deep pulling sensation through the inside of the legs. Okay, take a nice deep inhale. And put our hands on the ground. As you exhale, come up to sitting. Again, just taking a breath here, checking in. Okay, so we're going to come forward. So again, please set up as you need to. If you want to use your nice big pillow, okay, to help you come forward. Okay, you can. Got blocks or other pillows just to stack up. We want to come into a full fold. So again, we want to feel that kind of squishing happening through the front of the body. Your hands can come onto the floor, your forearms, okay, or onto props as you need. And just let yourself settle here, breathing in and breathing out. So, as with lots of things, we are living a balanced lifestyle. It's much easier to actually have our body functioning at an optimal state. In Ayurvedic medicine, they talk about foods that are bitter in taste or astringent. Some of those foods are like the dark leafy greens, which are great to support the liver in its functioning. And one of the other things is just finding a way of having a healthy outlet where you're able to express yourself, express your emotions. Even if it's something as humble as just sitting with them on your own. Actually acknowledging them and welcoming them. So we're going to be here just a little bit longer. So again, shift, adjust if you think you can come in to your shape a little bit deeper. Please feel welcome to do that. If that's not available to you, then that doesn't matter. Just be as you are. As you're ready, take a nice deep breath in. We'll bring our palms under our shoulders. Slowly roll up to sitting. Take your fingertips to each leg and we're just the other one. That feels good. Okay, you can lean back on your hands and just very slow. Be really gentle. We've just come out of a very deep stretch that although we were moving the upper body, our legs were still that whole amount of time. Just very slow windscreen wipers. Okay. Coming back to center. All right, my lovelies. So we'll come lying down on our back. So we're going to come into twisted root. So that's the one where we're going to have our legs all crossed and tangled before we come into a twist. So if you want, you can have your blocks or your pillows each side of the mat so you can catch your legs. So we'll bend the knees. I will cross our right leg over the left. And we'll have airplane arms. And we're going to press in through the left foot. And we're going to lift our hips and scooch over to the right. Okay, so the right hips just scoot, or the hips are scooched over to the right a little bit. So there's a bit more room for the knees to fall to the left so they can fall of time. If you would like to turn your head to the left or to the right, you can. Do it also to stretch for that big opening that we did with the dragonfly straddle pose. It's just playing with the gallbladder meridian because they're paired. So just really soften just for the last few breaths. And as you take your next inhale, bring your head back to center if you turned your head. As you exhale, draw the belly button towards the spine to bring the legs back to center. You can uncross the legs, scooch the hips back to center, hug the knees in. Rock from side to side a couple of times. And as you're ready, I'll take the left leg over the right, squeeze the legs, press down through the right foot, scooch the hips to the left, let the knees fall to the right. Again, letting your blocks catch them if you would like to. Arms can be airplane arms. And turn your head if you wish to turn your head. Whole body starts to soften. Take a deep breath in. Bring your head back to center. And as you exhale, draw the belly towards the spine. Bring the legs back to center, unravel them. Bring your hips to center, hug your knees in. And just take a couple of breaths, rocking from side to side. All right, my lovelies. So we're going to make our way into Shavasana. So please feel welcome. If you'd like something under your head, you can put something under your head. If you would like something under your legs, put your pillows under your legs if you want. We'll come down onto our backs for Shavasana. So arms down by your sides. So take a moment to get comfy. You can hug yourself, rock from side to side. Let your arms come out by your sides. Let your feet fall open at the heels. You can let your feet be mat width, taking up some space. Again, just take a couple of breaths. Get completely comfortable. All the parts of your body that touch the floor, just notice that they all feel like there's an even weight. Again, one last time, a little fidget. Really invite that sense of deep comfort for your Shavasana. So when the liver is balanced, we have the ability to plan and organize. We can process well. We have good vision. And memory becomes excellent. There's a sense of benevolence that we have. Also, when our liver is balanced, there's a potential for growth. There's an intimacy between the liver and the heart energy in this kind of Eastern style anatomy. Because of that intimacy, the liver's balanced. We really are able to find a deep sense of compassion, not just for those that we feel are deserving, but also perhaps some of the folks that at initial glance would perhaps seem less deserving of our compassion. Folks that have hurt us or irritated us. And finally, compassion for ourselves. We are usually our own harshest critic. Breath go. Bring some movement to your fingers and to your toes. We'll stretch the arms up overhead as if you're waking. Maybe making circles with your ankles and your wrists, or circles the other way. Let's just take a deep breath in and sigh. Beautiful. And from this place of self-compassion, from this place of some clarity, clearing, I invite you to set an intention that you can take with you out into your day, into your week. And very slowly, as you're ready, press your palms into the mat. And on an exhale, slowly lever yourself up to sitting. Sitting up nice and tall. Bring the palms together. We'll close our practice. We'll chant one Om together. Think about something that you are in gratitude for. Take a deep breath in. And exhale, let the breath go. And let's inhale to close. Satnam, thank you for sharing your practice, for sharing your time. Namaste.